Hello everyone, thanks for joining. This is a vintage old Piko N-scale diesel locomotive that we're going to have a look at today. I don't normally cover N-scale stuff on this channel, but here we have something that I just couldn't resist. It looks pretty cool, very retro, so let's take a closer look at it. This is a Deutsche Reichsbahn V180 diesel, quite a large machine in real life, and this model is representing one in the red and grey livery. At the front here we have a couple of lights that have been picked out with some paint, and there's a grille, a number here, it's a bit fuzzy as well, and the grey here has a bit of problems with the masking around the front. This is quite an old model. I think it's from a time when it was still being made in East Germany. The obvious thing you can see is that it has nothing in the cab here, it's just a big piece of metal, and I think that's the chassis. You can see parts of the motor through these side windows as well. But it is actually quite heavy, so it might run pretty good. We're going to give it a go a bit later on in this video. The bogies are quite extensive. There's some details down here, but not a huge amount. And you can see that the buffers and the coupling are all attached to it. There's some quite extensive moulding marks like this one coming down here. And the detail on this isn't too good. The grills are okay, I suppose. The painting doesn't work very well on the side windows, and there's no glazing anywhere on this model. The Deutsche Reichsbahn and the number of this locomotive fare a little bit better on the side here than it does on the ends. But if you look down at the other end of the locomotive, it fares no better really. It's got some fuzziness around the edges of the red and the grey there as well. Up on the roof there's a pleasant amount of detail, some nice rivets and ribs going across, and some more grills as well. It's quite low definition on the plastic, but it's not too bad. Underneath we have a very interesting drive arrangement here. We've got these two gear wheels here, which obviously come from the motor, and they attach onto the bogies in the middle of the axle. You can see that here. So this part actually moves around on the gears. The front ones aren't powered, but they do pick up, and they are actually a little bit sprung as well. You can see that here. You can see for cheapness that they also have the little gear wheels on them. What is quite interesting is it's got 4 screws holding this together. It's only N scale, and yet it seems to need 4 screws, but that's quite interesting. We'll open this up after we give it a go. Hopefully it should run okay. Let's put it on some test track and see what happens. I've not actually run this since I bought it, so it'll be quite an interesting thing for me to learn as well. So here it is on some test track. This is Piko Flexi Track. And I think we're actually going to have some problems here because the flanges on the wheels on this locomotive seem to foul on this track. It's probably a bit too coarse, but we'll give it a try anyway. I'm going to be using my H&M controller on 12 volts DC to power this. So let's give it some power and see what happens. Well, it's not looking so good. It seemed to offer to go at the start there, but then it was just nothing. So I think maybe the motor seized up or something like that. Anyway, let's get this apart and we'll check it out. So very interesting inside the body shell, we have this piece of metal here, which seems to be transferring power from these two weights and into the motor at the top here. So it's quite an interesting setup, that one. And like I said, we do have these 2 large weights here, and without them the chassis is actually quite light. Well, it's taken a little bit of work, but I've actually managed to coax the motor back into life. I actually had to put power straight inside the motor here to actually get it to go in the first place, and I've put a little bit of oil into it and it seems to work a lot better now. I think it might have just not been used for some time. Anyway, I'm going to put this back together and then see if it'll actually run on the track. Well, good news, we've got it running again, but it is a bit ropey, and you did notice that it doesn't fit onto that track. That's not even really that fine a gauge of track either. So the flanges on the wheels on this locomotive are just really coarse, indicative of the age of it, I guess, but it's not going to work on modern N-gauge track. It is a bit flaky, but at least it's going. Now let's see how much this weighs. So this model comes in at 135 grams. So this vintage Piko model of a V80 from the Deutsche Reichsbahn, well, it's not really that good. It comes from an era where things were a bit cruder, and I think in N scale it just doesn't work that well anymore. It's got those terrible flanges on the wheels, which causes all sorts of problems on modern track, so it's not going to run or perform that well. And also the detail isn't that good. With the massive weights in it, it doesn't have any interior at all. There's some limitations with the decoration as well, and it was a bit of a pain to get the motor coaxed to running again, but actually once it got going it seemed to be not too bad at all. There's not a lot of detail on the moulding on this model either, so it's quite a limiting thing. However, it does have that vintage charm to it, which is very appealing in its own right. So would I recommend that you buy this model? I don't think so, or if you do, it certainly is going to come with some limitations, not least of which is that you have to have the right track in order to be able to run it. I do like vintage model railway stuff, but I don't think this is even good for a vintage model, so it's probably a pass for me. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this little model. And if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps this channel grow. I'll put this on the turntable so you can see all the way around, and another video will appear in a moment. Just click on that and I'll see you there. That's it for this one. Thanks for watching. See ya.